Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Orhan and I am a Flutter developer with experience of more than 3 years. In this video, we will talk about Flutter animations and eye-catching UI without using any packages or dependencies. We will work with basic widgets that are available. Also, we will learn how to use buttons, asset images, beautiful and simple animations, text styles, shadows, and much more. Further, we will learn how to create functions and how can we implement them. So without any further delays, let's jump into Android Studio. Let's assume that you know how to create a Flutter project. So I have already created my Flutter project named Discover Animals. I have included some necessary files that we will use in this project. These include assets. In assets folder we have images, different images of animals that we will use in our project. Also in lib directory, I have created a directory named utilities, and inside this there is a dart file named app colors, which includes all the colors that we will use majorly in our app. After that, let's see what is in the main.dart file when we create a new project in Flutter. So it includes a random code, and if we run this application we will see a simple text in the middle of the screen and a floating action button that we can press and it will increment the values. We don't need this code. We will remove all the unnecessary code from this file. And we will remove my home page because we are not going to use it. We will create our own widget called card view. Let's just put it there. We will create it later. Let's remove the title and name it Flutter animation tutorial. So let's create a new directory inside lib. We will name this directory as components. Inside components directory, we will create a new dart file that will be named as card view. Inside that card view, we will design a card that we are going to show on the main screen. So let's just create a stateful widget here. We will name this widget as card view as we have named it before. Just import material.dart so that all the error will be removed. Now we will remove the placeholder and place a scaffold there. We will give a background color to it. Let's give it a custom light gray color. As you can see, we have yellow lines. If we have to put constant before scaffold. Now we have to import card view. The error is gone. In pubspec YAML, we have to import assets that we have included in our main directory. Let's uncomment these lines. Remove hash before assets, and also let's uncomment this. Give it a space. Indentation is very important in pubspec YAML file. Let's replace its assets and give it a / and remove the remaining data. We can name different images like image1.png, but if we put a / it will consider all the images that are present in asset folder. Let's run our project. It will run in a moment. Takes some time while building the project first time, so we have to wait, and there it is. We have our project. It's a simple background, custom color gray, light gray, and we have a debug banner as you can see at the top of the screen. We can remove this debug banner, debug show check mode banner. We have to set it to false, and there you can see the banner is removed. So in the upcoming videos we will create this beautiful and simple UI. First let's create the background card with linear gradient, and we will give it some shadow so it looks more elegant. So we cleaned our code in the last video. Now we will focus on the components that we will draw. So we have a scaffold to which we have given custom light gray color. We will use body to display the main or primary content in the scaffold. It is below the app bar, so in our case we do not need any app bar. We will work with the body. So in body we will pass a size box with a width of 330, and we will give it a height of, let's say, 570. So we have drawn the size box that we need. The exact height and width we have mentioned above. So every widget in Flutter has a child. In this case we will use a container because we want to give a circular radius and also give a linear gradient. Okay, so we have to remove the constant from the scaffold because we are going to use container. For we will now give it a decoration, box decoration. In box decoration there are several things. We can give it a gradient, we give it a border, we give it a border radius. In our case we will use border radius because we want to give a circular feel to our card on the edges. So we will give it border radius dot circular of 40. It will make our card circular on the edges. To the next step, we will use gradient to give different colors. We can give different types of gradient, but we will use linear gradient. In colors we have to pass set of colors that we want to use. We can use a single color, but it doesn't any make any effect if we use a single color. So in gradients we have to use more than single color so it can appear on the screen. In our case we will use three different colors. We will use custom dark blue, we will use custom blue light, and we will use custom medium blue color. So it looks more elegant and we can see a more progressive transition between two or more colors along a straight line. So I mentioned the colors, and if we reload our project we can see that the card is in the top left corner of our mobile screen. So we will wrap our size box in a center widget so it will align our card in the center of our screen. So what do we need now is we do not want our gradient colors from left to right. What we want is we want it from top to bottom. So the colors are aligned from top, then center, and then bottom. So there are two parameters that we can use in gradient that are begin and end. So in begin we will use alignment dot top center, so the colors will start from the center of the card at the top, and in the end we will give it alignment dot bottom center, so it finishes at the bottom and in the center of the card. So if we refresh the screen, we can see that now our colors are aligned from top to bottom, which looks more beautiful than it looked from left to right. So what we need now is we need to add a shadow to our card. So for that purpose we have to wrap our code inside a stack. We will wrap it inside a column and then rename it to stack so that our container is inside the children widget. It's a easy way to do it. We can do it step by step, or we can do it like that. We have to use a container, another container. In this we will use decoration and give it a box decoration just like the same previous container that we designed. We will give it a border radius dot circular, and we will give it a 40 because we want it like the same as we have our previous card. So now we will give it a gradient. We will use this time we will use only two colors in the gradient. We will use the linear gradient, and we will provide the colors as we previously know that we need an array for gradient colors because we are using more than one color. So we are using custom blue light and custom medium blue. Let's say yes, we will use custom medium blue. So as we have used linear gradient before, so we know that we have to align colors, that we have to define the beginning and the end point. So in this case by default it defines from left to right, but we will define the beginning from, as in our previous container, from top center. Beginning will be alignment dot top center, and for the bottom it will be same as before. We will use alignment. Now we will use alignment dot bottom center. What do we need now? We need to give a shadow to our card. For that purpose we can use an argument of the decoration that we are using, box decoration, box shadow. In box shadow it requires an array in which we have to provide the box shadow. Box shadow includes color. We will give it a color of custom dark blue, and we can set the offset of the shadow. We will use offset. So offset requires two inputs. We will give it x-axis 0, and for y-axis we will give it a 12. So after reloading we can see on the screen that there is a beautiful shadow underneath our card. I don't think we need this linear gradient. Let's remove it and reload the project. Yes, we do not need this linear gradient, only box shadow will work. So let's give another shadow to the bottom of our card. For that purpose we will again pass box shadow. For this time we will use color custom blue light with opacity of 0.85. As far as the offset goes, for offset this time we will give it x-axis 0, and for y-axis we will give it a 3. As you can see, there is a error. For this we have to remove this constant at the top and then add constant at the remaining yellow warnings. If we reload our project, you can see there is a beautiful small line of custom blue light color that we can see at the bottom of the card. So this is our main card view file. There's going to be a lot of code in here, so let's refactor this code and extract some widgets out of this file. After when our project is completed, it's easy for us to read. So we will name this new widget card view shadow. By default it will show this widget at the bottom of our file, but we will cut it from here, and in the components we will make another file, um, another dart file, and give it a name of card view shadow, and place that code inside this file. Now we to remove these errors we have to import the material library. By importing the material library, most of the errors will be resolved, but for this colors we have to import app-utils files. Now all the errors are removed. Let's go to the card view file and import the card view shadow. Let's add the constant to remove this warning, and if we reload our project, you can see that the reload is complete, and the screen looks exactly the same. So our code is working. So we are done with our card view background, and it looks fantastic. So let's move to other items that are on our card. First we will code this text view at the top, and step by step we will go through all the components. So we are going to draw all the elements in a vertical view on our card. So for that purpose we will use column, and inside column we will pass children, and inside children we will use text widget, and inside text widget we will pass animal as a dummy text. And if we reload our code, you can see that we can see animal, but at the left top left corner of our card and out of the card view, and it also looks very small. So first design, we will style this text, and after that we will bother about the positioning. So first of all let's add style to this text. Inside style we have to pass text style, and here we can define font weight. For font weight we are going to use it bold, and if we reload our code and if we do the indentation right, then we can see that our animal text is bold now. Now further we can increase the size of this text. For font size, let's say we will use 52 font, and if we reload, you can see that it's almost exactly at the position where we want it, but it is in a black color. Let's change the color, and we will give it a custom color white, and if we reload our project, you can see that the text color has been changed, but the positioning of the text is not right. To resolve this issue, we can use padding. In this case, we can wrap our text inside padding only and make it work, but we have to do it for all the components inside the column separately. To save our time and make our code more reliable, we will wrap our column inside padding. By default, in padding, the padding is given from all side of 8 pixels, but in our case we will use symmetric padding. In symmetric we have two options. Horizontal, we will give it a 25, and for vertical we will give it a 5. To remove these yellow warnings, let's add constant at the start of our padding widget. So if we reload our project, you can see that the text is now perfectly aligned where we want our text. So let's move on to the next components that we want to design. So under the title text there is a subtitle text. For this purpose we will use another text widget. I have already copied the line and mentioned some text, something about animals. For text style we will give this font style of italic, so it looks more elegant. Let's change the color of this text now. For color we will again use custom color white, and if we reload our project, then you can see that now our text is in white. As you can see that our description text is not in alignment with our title text. To resolve this issue, we can give it a text alignment. If we set our text alignment to the left and reload our code, the text should change, but it does not change. For this, we can use cross-axis alignment of our column and set it to start. And if we reload our project again, we can see that our description text is now perfectly aligned under our title text. So moving on to the next component, there is a circle in the center of our card. We will focus on the animations later. Let's draw the basic image first. For this purpose, we will use image.asset widget in Flutter. Inside this, we will provide the path of our image. We have all the images in our assets directory. We will give the image name. When we use an asset image, we can't use constant because we were using constant at the top of our widget tree. So if we reload our project, yes, you can see that there is a image of a baby elephant in the center of our screen. So now we will comment this image.asset line because our main focus is to code a container in the center of this card view. For this purpose, we will use container and give it a width of 300 and a height of 300. And we will use decoration, and inside box decoration, the shape of the container, we want it box shape. We want it box shape dot circle. And if we reload our project, firstly we have to remove this error because we are using container and at the start of a widget tree we have constant. To remove these warnings, we have to add constant at the start of the yellow lines. And now if we reload our project, you can see that there is nothing to show. So let's give it a color. We will give it a custom color white. And now if we reload our project again, there you can see there is a circle right in the center of our card view. So first of all we need is to remove this color, and after that we have to give gradient to this container. For gradient, we will use linear gradient as we have done before. We have to pass array of colors which we want. For this purpose, we will be using colors.blue with shade of 500. After null safety update in Flutter, we have to add exclamation mark at the end of color value whenever we are using shade value. And as far as the second color goes, we will be using colors.purple with the shade value of 300. Now we have to remove this constant from box decoration to get rid of this error. Now if we have organized our code and reload our project, you can see that the colors are perfectly aligned inside the circle. Now what we need is we need to add image in front of this circle. For that purpose, we will wrap this container inside column and rename it to stack. As we want to fill the whole space in the stack, we will use the widget position dot fill. And inside position dot fill child widget, we will pass the same image asset widget with the same path of our asset image. And now if we reload our project, you can see that the picture is perfectly aligned inside the circle. So image is perfectly aligned inside the circle, but the circle is not in the center of our card. To resolve this, we can wrap our text widget inside a padding widget, and we will give it a padding only to the bottom of 32 pixels. Now if we reload our project, you can see that the circle is right in the center of the card. Inside this container, we are going to animate the color, so there will be a lot of code. So to make our code more readable, we can extract this Flutter widget, and we will give it a name of custom circle view. Now if by refactoring this code, we make it easy for us so that after we want to make any changes, we can easily open the file and we can replace the code. For this purpose, in the components directory, we will create a new Dart file with the name of custom circle view. And inside this file we will place that code. And to get rid of these errors, we have to import material library. So all the errors are gone in this file. So let's get back to card view file and import custom circle view here. Let's add constant in the start to remove these warnings. So now let's move to custom circle view file. So first of all, we have to convert this stateless widget into stateful widget because we are going to change state when we are animating our colors. We have to extend our state class with single ticker provider state mixin. Even we are not animating the colors, we are only using the duration. We have to add this ticker provider. Now we are going to define the variables. First we will define animation controller, and we are not going to initialize this now. So for that purpose we are going to use late in the start of our variable declaration. And second variable will be a boolean with the name of underscore is animated gradient, and we will set it to false. Now we have to override our init state function. Basically init state function, what it does is whenever this widget will be called, the code inside the init state widget will be run first. And now inside the init state we have to override the super dot init state function, and after that we will initialize our animation controller. And inside animation controller vsync we are going to pass this that represents this state class ticker provider through which we extended our class at the top. Now after that we are going to pass the duration. After the duration here represents that after how much time we want to animate. So here we will pass a duration of 1 second. That means we want to animate our colors after every 1 second. And now we will add a listener. By adding listener after every 1 second we can trigger our animation controller and do some functionality with it. So for that purpose we have to use set state. Set state is basically used when we want to change the state of some variable or a widget. So in our case what we are going to do is we are going to use the animation controller dot value and check if the value is less than 0.5. If the value is less than 0.5 then automatically for the variable is animated gradient the true value will be declared. And now what we want to do is we want to repeat this step after every 1 second. So for that purpose we are going to use animation controller dot repeat, and inside repeat we are going to use reverse and set it to true. So now we have initialized our animation controller, but what if we change our screen, or if we change a widget? For that purpose we are going to override another method with the name of dispose, and inside dispose we will call the super dot dispose first, and after that we will do the animation controller dot dispose which will delete our animation controller. We will make the container to animate just like in the sample video. The colors inside the container is animating after a few seconds, and after that we will put the image in front of the circle, and then we will move towards the bubbles that are animating. So without any further delay what we want here, we want to replace that code and in child we will pass animated builder. Animated builder takes two properties. First one is the animation that represents the controller, and we will put our controller animation controller. And second one is the builder, which also takes two properties. First one will be the context that will be of our widget, and second one is the child. And let's put a comma at the end of our curly braces and indent our code. Now in the curly braces we will return a decoration box. Inside decoration box there we will provide the box decoration. This one is the same as for a simple container. Inside this we can provide the gradient or the shape of the container. First of all we will give it a shape. We will give it a shape box shape dot circle. So this will give our container a circled shape. Because we have removed our previous code, in order to check that our code is working, let's give a custom color white. And now if we reload our project you can see that the gradient is removed and the white color is given to the container. So let's give it a gradient now. For linear gradient we will provide a list of colors as we have done in our previous steps. For this purpose we will use colors dot blue and give it a shade of 500, and as far as the second color goes we will use colors dot purple with a shade of 300, and we will put exclamation mark at the end of the shade value. I have explained this in the previous video, you can go and check this, why are we using exclamation mark. And now after providing the colors let's reload our project. As you can see that the gradient is working fine, But what we want to do is we want to animate these colors. So for that purpose we will use begin, and inside begin we will use our variable that we have defined before, is animated gradient. And if the is animated gradient is true, we want to align a color at the top left, and if it is false we want it to align at the bottom left. Alignment dot bottom left. Now same goes for the end of the colors. For end we will check if the is animated gradient is true, then we set it as the bottom alignment dot bottom right. And if the animated gradient is false, then we will set it equal to alignment dot top right. Now after setting the alignment dot top right, and if we rearrange our code, and then if we reload our project, you can see that the colors are animating after every 1 second. But we have provided only two colors for linear gradient, so it doesn't look much beautiful. To make it more aesthetic, we can give it a third color with colors dot white, and now look, after the reload the gradient is looking more elegant. So after that, now we will start working on bubbles, the bubbles that are animating on the screen. For this purpose, let's comment our code for the image that we are showing on the container, so we can easily see the changes while we are coding. What we want to achieve is we want to show bubbles throughout the container that will move forward and backward. So for that purpose, let's take a look on the sample video. Like in this video, as you can see that the bubbles are moving from one side to another side and repeating their formation. So what we want to do is first of all we would wrap our animation builder inside a stack. For that we can take the easy approach and first wrap into a column and then rename our column into a stack. So now we have to wrap the animation builder inside a position dot fill, so it covers the whole space inside our size box. Now as you can see, after reloading, our code is working fine. After that let's put a comment here. Here we will show the bubbles view. So for a bubbles view file there will be a lot of code, so let's create a new file inside the components. Here in the components, let's create a new Dart file with the name of bubble view animation. So inside this file we will use stateful widget. For this we can, if we type stf, it will give us a option to create the stateful widget, and we will name it as a bubble view animation. To remove the errors we will import material library, and now as we did in the custom circle view, we extended the class with a single ticker provider state mixer. We will do the same in this case. We will extend our class with ticker provider state mixin. So now let's create the methods first we are going to use. First of all we want to get the random number of circles on the screen when we are trying to animate them. For that purpose we will use random library, that is a part of Dart math library. Now if we use its method dot next int and provide a digit inside it, for example if we provide a 7, then it will return a integer between 0 to 6. So the number of circles on the screen will be between 0 to 6, and after that we will initialize a boolean with the name of is animating, and we will set it to false. And now we will create a method in which we will define the coordinates of the bubbles that are moving on the screen. For this purpose we will use a return type double, and we will name our function random coordinate. Let's remove it and set our spelling. We will use random coordinate. And we will use a double value of a container size as a parameter, double container size, and we will return a double value. For this we will use a random dot next double. We are not going to use integer in case because we are returning a double value. So let's replace it with next double, and we will multiply it with the container size that we are getting in the parameters above. So after this method, what we do is we will replace our placeholder code with a size box of width 300 and height of 300. And for the child we will use a stack widget, and for the children of stack widget we will use a list dot generate, and we will return animated position widget. Inside animated position widget we will give a duration of 2000 milliseconds, which is equal to 2 seconds. And for the child we will use animated opacity, and for the animated opacity it goes the same. We will use the same duration of 2000 milliseconds. And for opacity we have defined a variable above with the name of is animating. If is animating is true, then we will give a opacity of 0.25, and if it is false we will give a value of 0.0. Now let's remove the yellow warnings by adding constant, and instead of length we will use here the random circle, the method we used above that was giving us a value between 0 to 6. Let's add a return in the start of animated position widget. For animating our bubbles we will give it a curve. We will use curves dot ease in out. Now for the animated position widget we will define the left and the top from where our bubbles will generate. So now for the left we will check if the is animating variable is true. If it is true, then we will use a random coordinate method that we have defined above, which take a container size of value of the type double. So now what we do is we will give it the width of our media query and minus the random size that we are generating above. And if the value of the is animating is false, then we will give the total 300 width that we have of our size box and divide it by 2. Same code we will use for the top, and replace this left with the top. What it will do is it will generate bubbles by giving a space of 150 if it is false from the left and 150 from the top. What it will do is it will stretch our bubbles throughout the container. Now for the animated opacity we will give it a child animated container with a duration of same as we given above, 2000 milliseconds. Animated container is representing the bubbles that are going to be shown on the screen. For their width we will use is animating variable. If it's true, then we'll give it a random size. If it's not, we will set the width equal to 0. And same goes for the height. If the is animating is true, we will provide the random size as 0.0. Now for the child we will pass a simple container, and inside container we will give a decoration box decoration, and we will firstly give a shape to our bubbles. We will use box shape dot circle, and after that we will define the color that will give to our bubbles, which will be custom color white. So let's remove the warnings by adding the constant at the start of box decoration. So that's it for now. In the next video we will define a method in which we will trigger our is animating variable and set its value to true or false, so that after some duration a bubble animation can repeat itself. So for that purpose what we will do is we will create a method with a return type of void, and we will name this method as start animating. And inside this function we will change is animating variable to true, because we want to set our bubbles to animate. And after that we will use a method named as future.delayed. What this method will do is after some duration, in our case we will pass 2000 milliseconds or 2 seconds, we can set the state of our is animating variable. So basically what we want to do is we want to animate our variables, then after 2 seconds we will stop them, and after that it will again we will use the recursive programming technique, and we will call the start animating function inside itself, so that the bubbles will repeatedly animate from one place to another place. So after that, what we will do is we will create the init state method, and inside this method we will call the start animating function. So whenever this widget is called, you can see that the bubbles will animate on the screen. So after restarting our app, so the bubbles are not animating. We have to call our bubble view and bubble animation view here. So after calling the bubble animation view, if we restart our application, wait for a moment, you can see that the bubbles will start animating on the screen. So this is a success for us, as the bubbles are animating slowly. They are changing their place, and also they are changing their size. Now what we will do is we will comment this code, and we will try to change our animal name above and the detail in the subtitles about the animals with the images. So after creating our methods, we will create a button at the bottom of the circular view. So whenever we click on that button, the images will change. So first of all, let's uncomment our code for image.asset. It will show a red warning because we are using constant in the start of our widget tree. Let's remove all these yellow warnings by adding constant in the start of every widget. So now what we want to do is I have some data, two lists. First list contains the data of animal names, and second list contains details about the animals. So what we will do is we will create a function. Before that, we will initialize a variable named image number with 1, and also we will initialize our list of integers with the name generated number, and for the start we will take an empty list. Now we will create a method named random number. Inside this, what we will do is first of all we will check if the generated number list length is equal to 5, then we will clear all list. What we will do is now we will use a do while loop. Before that, let's declare another variable with the name of random number, and inside do we will set this random number equal to random dot next int 5, which will generate numbers from 0 to 4. Then we will increment it by 1. So now in while condition, we will check that if the generated number dot contains this number, the random number that we have generated above. If the random number is not already in the generated number list, then what we will do is we will set our image number equal to random number, and also we will add it to generated number list. So first of all, let's add it to generated number list, and then we will set state of a variable of image number and set it equal to random number. So for now we have created our method random number that will generate a random number that is not used before and set it equal to our image number. So now we have used in image.asset or path of the image, and I have named all the image in such a way that there is an image, then dash, and then a number. So we will replace that number with the image number that we will randomly generate. So in this case we haven't called the function, but we have set our image number in the initialization equal to 1. So when we reload our code, we will see the image 1, that is of elephant. So now what we will do is we have to make the name of the animal and the details of the element also dynamic. So for that purpose, let's remove this animal, and at this place let's add animal details. Let's copy it from here, and now we will replace this animal with animal details. So what we will do is here we have to provide the index of the value which we are trying to call. So we will use our image number and we will decrement it by 1 because the values inside the lists are stored from the 0th index onwards. So now if we reload our project, you can see that we have mistakenly provided animal details. We had to provide animals list in the title view. So let's replace it with animals and reload our code. Now you can see that we can see the exact same animal name that is in the picture. So now for the details of the animals, let's use animal details list here, and in the index we will do the same. We will use the image number and we will decrement it by 1. So now if we reload our project, remove this constant, it will remove the error, and let's add constant in start of our widgets. Now if we reload our project, you can see that a detail about the animal is shown. So that's it for now. In the next video, we will create a beautiful button at the bottom of our card view, which will be used to dynamically change the animal details and images, animal names, and their description. So now what we will do is we will create a button, as you can see in the app preview, from where we will call a function to change animal details whenever the user pushes this button. So without any further delay, let's jump into our Android Studio. So first of all, what we will do is we will use boxfit.contain for our image, which will allow it to be as large as possible while still within the bounds of the parent widget. So now let's move towards our main objective, which is to create a button from where we can access our function so that we can change the animal details. For this purpose, we have to go to our parent widget, that is a stack, and inside the children, at the last, we will use a elevated button, and the child, we will replace child property with a text. Let's use text and give it a name of explore more. So and now on pressed, we will pass an empty callback. So now if we reload our project, you can see that the button is at the top left corner of our screen because we are using stack and we haven't aligned this button. So what we will do is we will now wrap our elevated button with the align widget, and after that we will set the alignment to alignment dot bottom center. So now if we reload our project, you can see that our button is at the bottom of our card, but we want to give some padding from below. So we will wrap elevated button inside a column, and then we will use size box and we will give it a height of 20 pixels. Because we are using column, that's why we have to set its main axis alignment to main axis alignment dot end. So now if we reload our project, you can see that the button is at a perfect position where we want it. Let's remove all the errors by using constant, and inside our callback in onPressed, let's call our function random number. So now if we reload our project and press the button, as you can see that the animals are changing when we press the button. The animals are not repeating themselves because we have implemented the functionality that the animals should not repeat. Now button is functional, so let's give some style to this button. For this purpose we will use style, and we will use elevated button dot style from, and inside this we will use padding, and we will give it a padding symmetric padding as insist dot symmetric. And for horizontal padding we will give it 32 pixels, and for vertical padding we will give it a 16 pixels. So now if we reload our project, you can see that our button is a little bit bigger, and after that we want to give some elevation to this button so that we can have some shadow effect. For this purpose we will use elevation and give it a value of 4. As you can see that there is a beautiful shadow under the button. So now let's give a style to our text. For this purpose we will change the font weight to font weight dot bold, and if we reload our project, you can see that the text is now bold, and let's increase the font size also. For font size, we will give it a value of 18 pixels. And now if we reload our project, you can see that the button is looking more beautiful now than it was before. Let's give a background color to our elevated button. For this purpose, we will use custom color white. Now our button functionality and styling is complete. As you can see that our button is working fine and the animal details are changing without repeating themselves. So now what we are missing is we are missing our bubble animation view, because we had commented out that line so that we can focus on our image and the circular gradient. So now let's uncomment this line and let's add constant to remove this warning, and after that let's restart our application. It will take some moment, and when the application is restarted, you can see that there is a beautiful animating bubbles across our card, which makes it look more aesthetic. Now if we press the button, you can see that the images are changing also. So this is it for this series. Hope you have enjoyed and learned from this series. Please make sure to like this video and leave a comment if you like this series, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel as it provides fuel to my motivation to keep grinding and share with all of you people what I know. Thank you so much.